Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Nash, and I'm bringing you another episode of What's Your Mortgage IQ? Today, I am honored to have Karen Geiger with Coldwell Banker joining me. I've known Karen for quite a while, and she's an incredibly successful realtor and just an incredible human being. So I am happy to share her with all of you today. And we're going to kind of talk about investment properties and whether you should be investing in real estate, investment properties, and how do you go about that. But before we jump into that, Karen, welcome.
Thank you, dear. Thank you. Good to see you.
Good to see
Good to see
you.
everybody out there in TV land or
Yes,
wherever they are.
yes. And before we do get started, you are, I would say you're an icon in the community. You are very well known. You're very community driven. You're very active, and you make a difference in the community. So not everybody certainly does that. And I've never asked you this before. Who taught you that?
Oh, I don't know. I think, I don't know. Maybe it comes from being the oldest of 9 children and you have to kind of get out there. I grew up in a small town and I think one of the things I thought about this question, one of the things that maybe drives me a little bit with this community is I'm from another Superior community in Nebraska. And when we moved to Superior, Colorado, 20 some years ago, 1997, it was a small growing community. It had a lot of room to grow. And I just thought, I don't know if it's that Superior connection or what, but I wanted to be involved. I loved working with the Superior Chamber of Commerce. That was one of the first things I volunteered for and ran to be on the board of directors because I love working with businesses and business owners and people who are out making stuff happen. And so I don't know. It just is. And I wanted the community garage sale was something we didn't have anything like that to bring community together. So I started that probably 15, 16 years ago now. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's a very popular event in the community for sure. And even with COVID, you've been able to make that work. And your community involvement is incredible and something that, I personally strive to, make more time to do things like that. And, the more you put out, the more, you receive back. And, it's just a gift, I think, especially to, help the community. But why don't we help some of our listeners today um, understand a little bit about buying an investment property? I think it's a question that you and I get quite often is, hey, I've always wanted to invest in real estate, but they really don't know where to start. So whether it's somebody that is young or a little bit more seasoned, when somebody asks you that question, what immediately pops into your head that you should say to them or ask them?
Well, I think that they need to understand that it's not a short term, it's not the golden goose is not necessarily going to be there. You might need to feed the beast for a while. It depends on how much you want to put down, but a lot of it depends on why do you want to do this, and do you want to just expand your real estate holdings, or do you want, for me personally, I know there are a lot of realtors in the world or in the country that don't even own they don't even own real estate or investment property. So you have to, we do. I think it's certainly one of the things that being in real estate, you see the value of appreciation, you see how properties can appreciate over time. And when I'm talking to somebody, it's like, okay, what's your you buy for usually 3 reasons. One is appreciation, one is write-offs or deductions, and the other is income. Well, you have to hold it for a while to get income on it, unless somebody wants to pay cash. But with interest rates as low as they are, why would anybody do that? But I think it's also can be a great hedge against inflation if that should uh, increase in years ahead, because your mortgage is going to be stabilized, your payment is going to be stabilized, and with interest rates the way they are right now, it would be crazy for people not to be refinancing or investing in real estate
Right.
if they had the stomach for it. So
Right, right. Well, those are all great points. And I love what you said is you asked them why, because everybody's why is different. And that's a fantastic point. Exactly. What would you advise on, new construction versus resale, or is there a difference? Because of course, we both know the market is extremely competitive, and sometimes people have got the stomach for it to fight to get that house they want, versus maybe sometimes they'd rather just go new construction. So how do you advise them on that for investment purposes?
well, it depends on the budget. It depends on their timing. It depends on if they're coming out of. Um, I, I have two clients that bought. Actually, they live in Germany, but it was a father-son situation. The son got interested, told his dad about it, and we. I encouraged them, or I felt there was a good area for them to invest in. And it is new construction, because if you get in early enough in new construction, by the time you close, usually it can be 6 to 10 months before you close. With this kind of a market, there may be automatic appreciation already in the amount from the amount of time you wrote the contract. And that certainly has been true with these two. And the other thing about new construction is that once you lock that in, you're usually not in a bidding war. You don't have to go in, and for these guys being long distance, they didn't have time to go and look at, they weren't able to come and see the properties I was sending them, but they could know that they had something under contract. It was set to close, it was set to be built, and by the time, and then they knew when they were going to be able to get a tenant in there. So it depends on the budget. A new construction is not going to be a $200,000 investment, and probably hardly any place in Colorado will be that. So
Yeah, that's the other side, right? It's like you get brand new, but you get to pay for it. And I know people will ask me on the new construction, they're like, yeah, but I want to make sure I get that low interest rate right now. And unless you've got a long-term lock program, which I'm lucky enough that we do out to 180 days, that's great. Then you can take advantage of that. But there's plenty of companies that don't offer that, and then you're waiting, 30 days before closing. But I agree with you. There's advantages and disadvantages for sure on that. Now, your clients that are in Germany, I'm assuming they are U.S. citizens because.
yes,
Okay.
yes, they are. They just happen to be. One is a doctor. Or he had a big company in Palo Alto, and his son met my son at CU, and they became friends, and that's how we got that connection. But he eventually, the son wants to come back to Colorado and live. He works for Google actually in Europe right now. So
Very good.
yeah, they're U.S. citizens. It just is a little. You worked on with them on the financing of it, so it's a little more. It can be a little more challenging with funding
Across the water. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
yeah, he's watching. And because there's such a lack of inventory, so that let's go back to that for tenants and finding tenants in this market. I haven't found that to be a problem for me personally in my two investment properties and or with my clients, because there's so little inventory. And I think that people need to also not, when they're buying investment property, like motivation, don't be too greedy with your rents. I would say, as long as you've got somebody else taking care of your basic things, your basic expenses, allow that. Make sure you get a tenant in there. Make sure you get those renewals. It's a lot less expensive to keep a tenant for an extra $30 a month in a rent renewal than have somebody not be in there. So
True. I certainly have learned my lessons on, investment properties and, managing myself, which I'm like, oh, I'm in the business. I've got time for this. And, the lesson that I learned is that I wasn't I wasn't tough enough. I'll just be blunt. I wasn't tough enough that, somebody didn't pay their rent. I'd be like, oh, okay, I understand. Let's see if we can work it out. And then they left me high and dry. And then they left my home in horrible shape where, in hindsight, you learn as you mature. In hindsight, I should have had a management company that could handle that because they have those strict guidelines. That's their expertise. And yeah, so if I had to do it all over again, I would give up a little bit of money in order to have somebody professionally handle that for me, which is kind of what you're saying in a way on rents. Like, don't, it all kind of comes around. How do you feel about self-managing or management companies?
Oh, I definitely think I use a management company certainly for the lease writing. That's invaluable because you've got somebody that knows how to vet the clients. I don't want to be knowing what their credit score is or their personal background or their criminal history or any of that. I want somebody else to be taking care of that for me, and that's using a professional management. And then their recommendations on rent increases, etc. And the lease, having a good strong lease that is very landlord friendly is critical. And to keep up with changing Colorado regulations with COVID or whatever is happening with landlord. I don't know if there are right now, because I don't have that problem because I've had somebody that vetted my tenants, and everybody's been good. I've never had a problem with having rent being paid, but
yeah, I think it's just huge. And again, sometimes you have to learn by mistakes, and I certainly made my mistakes, like I said, but the good thing is that I've learned from it. And, you and I are lucky enough to know some great management companies and people and their vendors, right? Like if something goes wrong, they know that vendor is going to respond to them right away to get that, that furnace fixed when it's, 20 degrees out. So yeah.
Right.
Karen, you bring up some great points. And I know from a tax point of view, because we're heading into tax season, people will ask me too, well, really, is it a good idea to own an investment property? And I laugh. I'm like, it is the best because you get, with current tax law, you have a lot of opportunities to write off, some things. And I also recommend a strong accountant if you're going to build your real estate portfolio as well, which I know you do that as well.
And it just is a matter of what's your tolerance level for do you have a tolerance for it? And that really is the thing. If you and I don't, it depends on, building a big portfolio, that's a different tolerance level than having a couple of other, but we live in a great, living where we live in Colorado, our appreciation, our home values has continued to go up, not crazy so that we run into the situation we ran into in 2008, but it's just solid because every morning we get to look out and see those beautiful Rocky Mountains. So
we are very lucky. We are very lucky. And so are all the listeners to have you share this kind of advice and tips and, how to buy, what to buy, how to charge rents, how to determine if it's a good, investment for you. And Karen, if people want to get in touch with you, what is it? I will provide, of course, your email and your phone number, but if somebody's had a quick question, would a phone call, a text, or an email be best?
Probably a text or an email.
Okay.
Would be the easy, because there's so many. It's like if I don't know the number, it's probably Social Security coming to take me to jail or something. All of those spam calls, you just
all
don't
those
know.
spam calls. I know they're rampant.
Especially gives that little introduction.
That's great. So, what is your phone number and what? And I'll put your email here. But in case, what is your phone number?
303-249-8149.
Fantastic.
249-8149.
Karen Geiger with Coldwell Banker, thank you so much for sharing some of your investment tips. And hopefully people will take that advice and become even more prosperous with owning real estate. Thanks
right.
again. I really appreciate it.
All right, honey. Talk to you later.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay.